Oh, right now I just accepted a Uber ride. All right, so I'm gonna turn my lights on and let's bounce.
Aaron McLaughlin is new to Uber.
Basically made $5.47. If you can get 4 or 5 trips done an hour, you can make $25 an hour, whatever it is. That adds up. You work 4 hours, you make $100 in a day. That'll pay a bill.
Up until a couple weeks ago, the $58,000 a year he makes as an officer at the federal prison in Mendota, California, was enough to support him and his family. But because of the shutdown, McLaughlin won't get a paycheck next week.
It's gut-wrenching. I picked up a secondary job driving Uber. Is it embarrassing? Yeah, it is. I'm a federal employee, but yet I've got to kind of sink down a little bit and say, you know what? I've got to swallow my pride, and I've got to get behind the wheel of my little car, and I've got to drive around and shuttle people around like a taxi cab driver, just so I know that when I don't get paid next week and my mortgage is due, or my food, I got to put food on the table, or PG&E's going to cut off my power for lack of payment. I've got to have something there.
The Federal Bureau of Prisons employs 40,000 workers nationwide, most of whom are deemed essential. That means they still have to go to work during a shutdown. They're just not going to be paid until it's over. McLaughlin and his colleagues at other Central California prisons say prison staff are already stretched.
How is the government shutdown and the fact that you're not getting a paycheck affecting you guys on a daily basis?
I live paycheck to paycheck, so this has a huge impact on me. And in the next few weeks, I'm going to be struggling.
This is my third shutdown in 7 years. I am a payer of child support, and I'm glad to do so. It, takes care of my daughter, but I can't make that payment. It's so inhumane. Their response to that is they put recommendations, call your landlord, ask if you could mow the lawn for rent. I'm surprised there wasn't a suggestion to prostitute yourself on there. That's how degrading it was.
How is the shutdown affecting your colleagues and sort of the prisons more broadly?
Gosh, I get probably 15 to 20 calls a day from my members with issues that this is causing. It goes anywhere from can't pay their mortgages, can't pay their bills, the late payment fees, to the medical issues. We have some staff members battling cancer right now. Their medical bills are racking up. They can't pay them. Are they going to still be able to receive treatment? Traveling. I work in a place where a lot of people travel a great distance. I travel an hour and 15 minutes to get to work every day. So I average about $500 a month in gas. I know personally I can't afford the gas once the shutdown goes in the long term. The majority of staff are in the same boat.
Everybody's scared. They don't know what the hell's going on because this is different than 2013. We all went through the 2013 shutdown, and it was 16 days. There was a different sense in Washington. They wanted to reopen. There's not that sense right now.
I think also that on the Hill that there's notions that we're overpaid. I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of these people are not willing to help us, because somebody up there in the Hill is telling them that we're all good and we don't need any help.
Well, I want to ask you about that actually, because the president seems to maybe believe that too. And he said, this is more important than a paycheck. Federal workers would tell me to keep going.
I was very insulting.
Yeah. I completely disagree.
I'm a veteran. I fought in Iraq. I've served my country. I've taken life for this country. And you ran on that campaign. You said, quote, I'm going to take care of the veterans and I'm going to take care of law enforcement.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it. With all due respect to the President of the United States, I have not seen it.
Earlier this year, we received a whole bunch of immigration detainees. And this was part of his zero tolerance policies. We didn't ask for it. We didn't want it. And now the things that we're getting from the president is no paycheck. It's disgraceful. And the fact that, my opinion, is that if he's going to go up there and speak on that behalf of federal employees, come to Victorville, see us, and listen to us before you speak on our behalf.
Were you guys all Trump supporters in 2016?
I actually voted for him
I did too.
Based on his campaign promise that he was going to take care of law enforcement and veterans.
And the working man.
And he's let me down.
I supported Trump with the basis of, you watch his campaigning and he says, I'm for the American worker. I want better border security. And then as his presidency started going on, I'm sitting back thinking, okay, now you're backpedaling on what you said. You want to drain the swamp. And my whole thing in the beginning was when you drain the swamp, you're talking about the politicians. As we speak right now in Washington, D.C., congressmen and senators are still getting paid. They're not affected by this shutdown. They still get their paychecks.
The price tag going up every single day the shutdown goes on. In 2013, the shutdown cost American taxpayers $2.5 billion. CNN's Tom Foreman did the math. That could have paid the salary of 1,400 teachers for 30 years or 1,300 cops for 3 decades. It also could have put a good dent in the border wall funding President Trump is now demanding. But right now, no one is benefiting from the shutdown. CNN's Scott McLean is in Ogden, Utah, where the shutdown is taking a toll across the entire city.
The sign says it pays to live in Ogden, just not these days. This panoramic former frontier town in Utah is caught in the middle of a partisan battle being waged in Washington. Ogden has one of the highest concentrations of federal workers in the West. Right now, it's hurting.
Come here, love.
Whitney Snitchler is one of more than 5,000 federal workers affected in Ogden alone. Most work for the IRS or the Forest Service, and most are furloughed. But Snitchler is working without pay. No money, but still bills to pay, a gas tank to fill, and 2 kids to feed.
I don't think that we should be held captive. Like our paycheck should be held captive just because of something that they need to brawl out.
With no money on the way, she plans to ask the bank for a loan and likely the food bank for help. She's hardly alone. The local Catholic pantry says 50 federal workers per day are now relying on its shelves for the first time.
I've never done this before.
Laura Thompson is a longtime federal worker who never imagined she would be here.
I pay my taxes. I do what I'm supposed to do. I shouldn't have to be without a job.
With her savings already gone, she's registering with the food bank and lining up for the basics: canned goods, bread, and vegetables. She voted for President Trump, but not for this.
I agree with the wall, but it shouldn't be on us federal workers' backs.
We're not volunteers.
Adding insult to injury, workers suddenly find themselves without pay in a city that's seen the cost of housing rise 69% in just the last 5 years.
The federal employees are part of the ecosystem that helps support all of these small business owners and shop workers.
It's a ripple effect.
Correct. Absolutely right.
And those ripples are spreading. Ogden's main federal building sits smack in the middle of its normally vibrant historic downtown. It's now almost empty. At this bookstore, the owner says sales are down by half, and this restaurant has cut back its hours. Other restaurants are just scraping by.
There you are.
Waitress Holly Clavitt has seen her lunchtime tips drop by 2/3 since the shutdown started 21 days ago.
I have to penny pinch. I have to decide, which bills are prioritized, cut out all the extras. Okay, enjoy.
President Trump has suggested workers are willing to sacrifice their pay to secure the border.
So this really does have a higher purpose than next week's pay.
Clavitt, an immigrant herself, agrees.
Are you willing to sacrifice personally for it?
I'm okay for the safety of this country to do what it needs to be done.
We want to work. We want to work.
That view wasn't shared by furloughed workers protesting the shutdown in Ogden.
Government shutdown's got to go.
Many say they're getting desperate.
I have enough for one more mortgage payment, and I got to go to CarMax tomorrow and sell my car.
You're going to sell your car.
I have to.
There's hardly consensus on who to blame for the shutdown, but there is on one thing.
We just want our jobs back, and we want them to make it right.
Now, Lynn Stratton there wasn't able to sell her car this morning, so instead she asked the bank to defer her mortgage payment, which it did. 2,600 federal workers in Utah have applied for employment or unemployment insurance since the shutdown began.
The president will visit New Orleans on Monday to address the American Farm Bureau, just as farmers are beginning to feel the impact of the government shutdown. About $9.5 billion in federal aid was set aside to help farmers across the country weather the trade dispute with China. Well, those federal aid checks are now on hold. Dean Reynolds is in Polk City, Iowa, who spoke to a farmer who needs help after the price of his crops dropped by 20%.
Aaron Lehman is not a federal employee. He's an Iowa farmer. But the government shutdown has put him in a real bind.
This is our soybeans. Typically this time of year we'll go in just to check them, make sure they're not spoiling or they're staying in good condition.
Wow, you're not kidding.
Yeah, it's a 30-foot bin. When it's full, it holds about 10,000 bushels.
Lehman has watched the price of his soybeans drop 20% since last summer when the Trump administration got into a fight over trade with China.
So the price drop-off on soybeans together with the government shutdown is like a double whammy.
It really is. It got us coming and going.
This adds just another layer of uncertainty.
Oh, absolutely. We rely on our USDA folks.
The government shutdown means farmers are sort of flying blind, lacking the supply and demand information that the now closed Agriculture Department would be providing them and allowing them to plan ahead.
In 3 months, these dusty fields should be filled with crops, but how much to plant, no one is really sure. The government was in the midst of subsidizing farmers for lost markets in China, but the payments were suspended when the government shut down.
That side's not too bad.
A farmer for 25 years, Lehman wonders how it's come to this.
It's not worth putting up the wall to put us in this situation.
It's just over 1,000 miles from his Polk City acres to Washington, D.C., but the reverberations from the border wall stalemate are hitting him hard.